My name's Valerie Chung. I am the Strategic Engagement Director for Sedulous. More about that later. And obviously we know we're all here for this great event. Let's Talk Methods, very mysterious title, but really great to have so many of you in the room, so many friendly faces, some familiar, some new. Okay. Great, okay, sorry, let's get started. Sorry, Daniel, having me back to you all that time. So as I said, we are here today for this, for us, particularly special event, and I hope it will be also special for you. We have members of the panel who have some interesting experiences to share. But before that, right on cue. Before that, I would just like to say a few brief words about the last year. We don't usually have balloons at our events, but this event is special because we're a year old now at Sedulous. Thank you. It's been a very interesting year. Let me say it's been a very eventful year, literally. I think this is our 4th event. We've enjoyed every minute of it. We've enjoyed all the learning, and we're looking forward to a lot more learning and a lot more development. And I think what we've learned most of all is along this journey that we've really been kind of finding our tribe all the time. We've been finding so many like-minded people. We've been finding critical friends. We've been finding support from people that we may never have met if we hadn't embarked on this journey. So there's a lot to be grateful for, I think, for all of us on the team. If you're in the room as well, I think you probably know who you are. So that's definitely something that we're grateful for, and a special reason for having everyone in the room today. And you know, they say it takes a village. Sedulous is our baby, and you're all members of the village. Let's put it that way. We are looking to grow, develop, evolve, all of those good things in order to achieve our goals and fulfill our mission. So, enough from me. Let's start. Let's start with the panel. I thought that what I would do, presumably you've seen the promotional information, the deck is on the screen, but if we just start off with a quick round of introductions, I'm going to ask everyone on the panel to tell me, as if I didn't know already, but to tell me who you are, what makes you sedulous, and how did you come to be involved in this wonderful process, the systematic review.
So hello everybody, my name is Raquel Karijumari. I'm Project and Operational Director.
Can I hear you at the back?
I'll repeat myself. Okay. So my name is Raquel Karijumari. I'm Project and Operational Director at Sedulous. The first one, what makes me sedulous? I guess it's my passion for the community. I've had quite a lot of deep lived experience that has made me feel even more determined to ensure that community receives what they're supposed to be receiving. I think it's my values for action, ensuring that the values that are in place are actually actionable for the community. That's what I think makes me sedulous. I think when it comes to the review itself, one of the main things that comes out to me is that I wanted to get involved because I wanted to bridge the gap. I knew that there was a gap in the system when it comes to ensuring that research is for the community and by the community. I wanted to ensure that we're filling that gap by really diving deep into what's currently there for us to explore. And also I wanted to ensure that we are bridging the gap between community knowledge and research structures itself that needs to be filled in for me.
Good evening, everyone.
You're good.
I'm Sean Buchanan, founder of Equal Start. It's a social justice organisation. We was invited as a co-researcher to participate in the showerful process, to make sure that marginalised communities have their say within the realm of research. Because as you know, academic research has a very specific pathway to understand what goes on in day-to-day lives. And I feel that as a community member myself, and campaigning for social justice, that people that don't have a voice, we amplify that voice so they can have a say in how funds are divided up, how community services are handed out, how public services serve the actual people that they're supposed to, instead of being siphoned off by others. And as our mission, where there's people, there's power.
Hi everybody, so I'm Brenda Hyanda. I'm a research fellow. I'm based at King's College London. My work tends to look at ethnic inequalities in healthcare use and care quality. I suppose if you ask me what makes me sedulous is the approach that I take to resolving the issues, because most of my work involves identifying what the problem is, and we can start by identifying it on a large scale using quantitative research, using databases and numbers, which might not necessarily speak to the local communities. But the approach that Sedulous takes in terms of listening to voices, in terms of trying to ensure that the problems that are identified by the populations, the solutions are co-produced, is the same pathway that I actually also take in terms of trying to come up with solutions that are not only suitable for the population that we're targeting, but also effective, because there's no point in wasting resources in trying to come up with solutions that aren't going to make a difference. So that's.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sylvana Wolcott. I'm co-founder and managing director of Sedulous. What makes me sedulous? I guess for those that don't know what sedulous means, sedulous actually means moving with diligence and determination. And I think for me, what makes me sedulous is the determination of bringing the power back to the community by helping other people, researching the issues that are relevant to them. So how did I get involved in the review? I think I'm going to go a little bit deeper into that in a little bit, but we just wanted to understand how academic research is being used when we talk about research when it comes to marginalized communities, what is out there, what is working, what isn't working, and then how will that then inform how we should be working. But a little bit more soon.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Daniel J. Morris. I've added the J so I can sound distinguished. I'm the founder of There's No Box, which focuses on systems innovation and imagination to create services and products that help local communities to thrive. What makes me sedulous is diligent love. I'm a person, you might hear me say this word a few more times today, because it is the foundation and essence of who I am and the work that I do and what I like to bring to people in the community. I feel that when it comes to research, when it comes to approaches, when it comes to initiatives that are developed in order to help cater, serve and facilitate for people to thrive, people leave out love. So what I do is make sure there is love in everything I do, everything I say, every approach that I have. So yeah, that's all.
Thank you.
We can give it to Sylvana. I'm going to come to Sylvana next. I think that's wonderful. I love the descriptions, everybody. We didn't rehearse this, by the way. So I'm hearing it at the same time as all of you. I would add that being sedulous, there's something about being sedulous which is not a humble brag. When you hear us talking about things like diligence and the care, taking care. It's not bragging about that quality, it's actually aspirational, and in a sense it's also invitational. You know, we're inviting everyone to be sedulous. It's a mindset that we want that mindset to be contagious. So whatever negative mindsets are out there, we would like to replace that with a sedulous mindset. So it's not bragging in any way, shape or form. Great, okay, so that's all of us introduced. Let's move on and see if we can try and sort of flesh out the story of the systematic review in terms of how it began and how it has impacted each of you individually. Now, I think, if I can just read you from my notes, it comes up on the screen as well, but I'll just read for everyone in the room a very loose definition of the systematic review that we're talking about. Right, so the systematic review that we're referring to, think of it as gathering all the research, all the stories, all the evidence and the experiences about one big issue from everywhere, all the sources, and carefully analysing them together to understand what really works, what doesn't, and what's still missing. So that's really the process that we're talking about here. But our particular systematic review that we're discussing tonight has some quite unique elements to it, and that's why the panel are all here to discuss that. So we'll go back to Silvana. What was the spark and what kind of impact has this had on you?
The spark. For those that are new to Sedulous, Sedulous is actually a spin-off of another organization. So we as a team, we've actually been in community research for the last 5 years, working on a number of projects, mainly health related. And when we spun off last year, we're a year old now, I think as a team, we recognize that if we are going to challenge academic research, we first need to understand it, right? So this systematic review is kind of looking at like, okay, so what are the research methodologies out there that are being used when it comes to research with marginalized communities? You know, how are they being used? What is working? What isn't working? As a team, we already had an idea of what we wanted to look at. So, you know, community research is qualitative. It means that we're listening to stories rather than numbers, which is like the quantitative, right? So we wanted to look at, okay, so what are the qualitative approaches that are being used? What are the creative methodologies that are being used? What are the participatory? So when we say participatory, it means as in like how are the researchers working together with people that are being researched, right? And then further, what are the decolonized approaches? So when are we kind of moving away from what is box standard academic research? So we were very ambitious because it ended up actually being 4 systematic reviews in one, because every strand is a whole research on its own. But yeah, as a team, we felt that was a necessary step, because if we're going to challenge, you know, academic research, it is really important that we can say, but the research says, because a lot of us, we are passionate about what we're trying to say, but sometimes what we're lacking is the evidence, right? So what we're trying to now do is create the evidence to say that, okay, you're doing it this way, but actually the research says that this is a better approach of doing it. That's what we're trying to come to now. I forgot the second half of your question.
I was thinking about the impact that it has had on you, because it's a new experience. So what kind of impact has it had on you?
It's actually been very interesting. It's the first time I've ever conducted a systematic review, right? I didn't know what to expect. It's definitely a lot more work than I thought it would be. We were very ambitious. We thought we would be done by June, and we're now knowing that it's probably going to be early next year before we're done. But I think I started looking differently at academic research because, you know, academic research, when we talk in, you know, around community research, is kind of seen as the evil, right? It's like it's extractive, it's bad, etc. And I went with that mindset. I went into the systematic review. But as I'm actually going, I'm realizing that actually academic research on its own, it's not bad. There are really good approaches out there. It's just not enough academic researchers are using those approaches. And I think that's something that I've really, you know, learned in the process. So I think I'm kind of growing into understanding that actually this really was a necessary step, because there's definitely a lot that we can learn as a community research organization that is actually academic, that we can apply to community research. And also, again, the underpinning, because now we can say, oh, we're doing it this way because the research says. And I think that's so important for what we're doing, because as a community research organization, there's often this kind of thinking of like, oh, but is your research rigorous enough, right? So if we're now using academic approaches, but maybe slightly adapt them so we think they're working better, we can then say, yeah, but the research says, and we have that underpinning and we have that rigor that, you know, other people are saying we're lacking. So yeah, it's definitely been a learning process, but I'm enjoying it.
Definitely, for sure. I have a feeling now that Dr. Brenda is going to have some comments to add, so I think it'd be good to move on to her.
So I suppose with the systematic review, coming into it, I've done systematic reviews. I've been trained in doing systematic reviews. I love doing systematic reviews. I can remember when you guys came along, it was just a bit cautious as, are we going to be able to do this? But I think the understanding that we had in terms of I wasn't going to push you to do what you didn't feel was right, and you guys were open enough to let me explain as to what the process was. Because when it comes to academic research, especially when it comes to systematic reviews, there are steps to follow. You have to, if you want to get it published, if you want to make sure that it's something that is robust and it's recognized, there's gold standard systematic reviews. So there's different steps to follow, and I just wanted to ensure that what we were doing with the systematic review was going to be able to stand on its own legs when we take it to different presentations, when we're taking it to different audiences, when we decide to publish it, that it is actually going to meet the standards of publication. However, I really, really love that, you know, you guys would be able to push back and let me know this, okay, we want to do it in this way. And it's this relationship where we're accommodating each other, but ensuring that we've still got our eye on that robustness and that methodological rigor that we need for the research. So was there anything else to just
The impact that it had on you, because it was a new experience for you.
Yeah, so I think finding out that community researchers view academics in a certain way, that was quite interesting. And it was almost a case of trying to dispel some of maybe the myths that are there about maybe just even systematic reviews in general, that they might be very, taking a very quantitative, numbers-based approach, and there is no space for people's lived experiences, there's no space for the voices of the community. And trying to show that we can be accommodating with systematic review. It's not just a case of going and trawling lots of different literature, trying to tick boxes, that we can be quite flexible. And with systematic reviews, I find that although we are going to be collecting evidence from the different spaces, as Sylvana has indicated, there is the qualitative papers. You're going to try and find all the qualitative papers to answer this one big question, and then you find all the participative papers to answer whatever questions that you have. The final piece of work is going to be not just an accumulation of all these papers, it's going to be something that is going to be new. So something that is going to be, you've synthesized all this information, so you're coming up with new knowledge based on the existing knowledge, and our discussions in terms of what you're finding already is actually quite interesting for me to see as to what's being missed. Raquel, you're talking about how maybe definitions of participatory research might vary between different studies and how maybe community members look at the definition of participatory research and how academics are looking at it and what does that mean then, what gaps are there. So it's been a great learning curve in terms of just how what community research means to people who are doing community research and how I fit in. I think also with the events that you've had now, maybe just going beyond the systematic review itself, meeting the members who are co-producing the solutions when we're having the different workshops and hearing their voices and just being embedded within the community, that was really, really helpful. Because most of the time I would be with my papers, reading my books, far away from, I guess people's lived experiences and only coming out maybe when I need to do the field work. But this continuous engagement with the communities have really helped me learn and to just be able to keep people's voices as I go and as I do my own research. So that's the impact that it's had on me, just this learning curve and building networks and maybe future collaborations with the different projects that you have that are coming up.
So yeah, fantastic. Okay, that's amazing. Raquel, would you like to add to that? Add your experience?
My experience, I think both of them covered quite a lot and it was extremely valuable points, and I think that just like Savannah already said, around the systematic reviews, that we're doing it for a very community-centered reason. When we first created this organisation, this is what I wanted to do. We want this organisation to be very, very community-centered. I wanted to ensure that whatever research we are creating or doing, what evaluations we're doing, is all about community and how to ensure that they feel valued in the research that they're being a part of and how they feel valued in how the research is being done. When it comes to the systematic review itself, I guess what sparked my attention was that we're doing a lot at once. But I think it brings great value because we're learning a lot at the same time. We are only all 1 year old, but I do feel like by doing the systematic review, we're improving every day, by day, by day, by day. We're doing a bit at a time, which is helping us compress and be able to process what we're learning. And I think as well, it just makes the organisation what we want it to be. It's given us what we need to say we are truly sedulous because we have done the background work, we have made the effort, made the time, wherever it may be, evening, mornings, wherever it is, we're finding the time. But I guess, it's that true value. I think it's us bringing our values of sedulous into systematic review, which comes out to me. I think for myself, what I've learned is a lot. I think I've got dyslexia and I've got ADHD, so I've had to very much learn a lot as I go ahead. I've had to find my own coping mechanisms to be able to cope with the routine of the systematic review and just ensuring that I'm at the same pace as everybody else. Make sure I don't miss anything by going back and having different types of tools to read out certain things out to me to make sure that I don't miss out certain things. And that's been a process that has taken me slightly longer than I expected to get to where I am, but I do feel like that I've learned a lot from this process, and I think that it will only help me grow in what I'm doing at the moment and grow in the organisation. And I'm really hoping it brings, in a sense, I'm hoping that it brings others who are neurodiverse themselves a bit of a spark that, no matter where you are in the situation you are in, you can still get to where you need to be. It may take you slightly longer, you may need to find different tools, but there's always a way to get there with the right people around you, with the right tools, you can get there.
That's really encouraging. Before we move on, I have to ask you this. Don't beat me up about it afterwards. Tell us something about Boolean searches.
Boolean searches.
In your own words.
Boolean searches are basically a group of words and terminology that describe everything that your criteria of your review is supposed to hit. So this could basically mean, let's say, the word research. The word research has a lot of synonyms.
Synonyms.
Thank you. And lots of different ways of describing what research means. That means every single one of those needs to be in that Boolean search. And that's for every other word that needs to be in that search. So when I mean there's a lot of words, I mean there is a lot of words. Literally, I feel like goes on and on and on and on. So, but without that Boolean search, we would not get the papers that we needed. Yeah.
So you spent quite a bit of time with Dr. Brenda and Silvana as well, refining the search. I remember this, trying to get the words just right, just to hit that sweet spot, not too many hits. I mean, some of the numbers that you came up with, pieces of research, they were mind-boggling. I mean,
it came up, so we, as Silvana said, we had 4 different strands. Each one of them came out with at least 12,000, 15,000. It does get to the point where you do look at them and you think, how am I going to get through this? But there is a process. With a systematic review, it does help you cut down day by day, and it does break it down, it does make it easier to go through. I think one of the things I must say is that a big thank you to Brenda, because you have no idea how helpful you have been to help us learn the process. Just like Silvana said, this is the first systematic review we've ever done, and we're definitely challenging ourselves to do 4 at the same time, but I do feel like Brenda has been a very key part of how we've been able to get to where we are, been able to break down where we are, break down where the engines actually allow us to put in how long our Boolean is, and sometimes they get so big that it will not allow us to put it in. So I feel like even those little things, or even, for example, we've had a lot of papers that are restricted by payroll, and that payroll means that we are unable to truly evaluate what the research is actually saying. With Brenda's support, she's been able to help us break down a lot of them, been able to help us grab the ones that we're unable to get from that paywall, for us to be able to truly understand what it means. And for those who don't know, that paywall is basically more to allow universities and different types of institutions to be able to have access to quite a lot of the data that is published, but not publicly published, but published for university and other institutions, which means it is hidden behind a paywall. People like me, people in the community aren't able to access them. They still may be able to see, for example, the title, a little bit of a summary of what it means, but that's it.
Mysterious. Okay, great, thank you. Let's talk about the process from a slightly different point of view then. If we go to Sean, can you tell us how you came into this process? Because you came in from a different angle, and I'm sure it had, a unique impact on you. Tell us about that.
Oh, where I come from, it's a totally different local authority. So
Yeah.
I'm a part of a joint consultative committee, and what happens there? They ask people, members of the community, in terms of activists and community interest companies, what do you think they can do better in terms of, since lockdown they've had this levelling up, especially from people from the global majority. So what I try to do is give them, obviously, my personal experiences, but the stakeholders that I represent, about the ills and gripes they have about terms of services around housing, social housing disrepair, community spaces, domestic abuse, sustainable employment, even entrepreneurial enterprises, how they can connect to funding or maybe advice and help. So what they've done, they said, how can we then make sure that this kind of information is disseminated throughout the community, so it's not in a specific area where only people that are currently working can access. They said people that are disparate and underprivileged can get through to it as well, because a lot of people I've discovered in my journey is that they go to the job centre when they're at work, and they'll only have a job, they'll not relying that most jobs are not advertised. So they would connect to local authority through workshops and obviously training to make sure that people can access it. So while doing that, I was invited, by Daniel to do it. That's Voices, remember? So through that, I connected with my tribe, people with similar values, other organizations. So where I was inexperienced around funding opportunities and doing research through vehicles outside of what I learned at college and university. He then passed me on to Siobhan. And at first we used to go back and forth about what is needed best for people that are underprivileged. And she said, oh, why do you always challenge me? And I said, why are you connecting with me? I said, why don't you come around and actually participate? So she said, oh, come along in April. We had a table, a nice table. You had all these animals on the wall. I said, what's that all about? I said, animals, how does that connect to research? And she said, I did the safari and with the thought showers. We'd get around the table and they said, oh, they'll ask you questions. So I would convey my experience. Other people would convey theirs. And she said, look, this is how community works. Because if you don't have the lived experience in a group, they'll just say it's anecdotal. So I said, we're trying to compile that all together to make sure that it's fairly representative of all people, not just certain amount of people that say, I was in the drinkers of the community. So that gave me a certain privilege where other people that don't have that within their borough do. So by doing that, obviously the due diligence, I was able to learn more about that. And it's impacted me in terms of how I approach research now and how I connect with members of the community. And they've offered me to come in as a co-researcher to do more of the investigations, which I hadn't done anything like that since I left university like 15, 16 years ago. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of giving me a more precise focus. And as I said, connected with other people that have, and other organizations that have similar values. Mm-hmm. So I don't feel isolated when I'm being rebellious.
That's great. Over to you, Daniel. Thank you.
I entered from a different avenue. So I've been involved in developing community research models and methodologies as well. So the story that Savannah was alluded to earlier on about a spin-off. So I was a part of developing that spin-off at the program that spin-off actually went out and served the community with. And then prior to that, developing the actual program and mechanism for that for that business to exist. And then prior to that, I've kind of always been involved in community research in some aspect, even though it was probably not called that. It was, so I've had a few conversations about the fact that I've been involved in community and youth work for 25 years. And so, and around this area as well. And so I think my first introduction to what is now referred to as community research was detached and outreach work. So going out into the community, speaking to the community and youth, and I'll use this word, I'll say interrogate, and also I use another word which is reconnaissance. So these are, they sound like military, but I use those words because at the time I felt that in order to really acquire the information and the knowledge from the people, I had to use a certain approach to do so. And that took research into understanding actually those words that I just used, what does it actually mean? Instead of taking it from like a movie and saying, I'm doing reconnaissance. It's not that. So going into communities, as I said, and speaking to people, listening to people, learning how to be an active listener, developing those skills was really important. So when I then fast forwards to when I started to actually engage with institutions, speak with professors and academics and researchers, and to understand what are the nuances for them in what is research, what is academic research, and what is community research, and what is the parallels or the comparisons between them. For me, it was, well, it's kind of one and the same, but I guess the difference is that there is a lens and there is an access point to one. So with the institution, there's a certain lens, because when you do research as well into institutions, it might take a long time for you to have to prove or find evidence for that particular thing, that topic what you're discussing as an example. And it may even take even longer for a community member because it's a lifetime. We're talking about a lived experience. So in order to understand something that is going on in your life that impacts you and impacts the people around you, again, that could take a lifetime, or it could take a day. You could get a spark and the eureka moment comes and like, I understand everything in the world. Yeah. And for me, being involved in this, being a facilitator for the most point, it was good to sit down amongst people and be grounded and to understand the process and understand that there is validation here. So you often have to be validated by others. You have to be validated by your professional peers, validated by your academic peers. And this was validation from your community. This was the information that we're gathering together. The situations, the circumstances that we're going through is very familiar to one another. And actually what you're saying is somewhat my truth as well. And I don't need a paper to be written in order to validate that. And so when we've gone on a process to understand, okay, how do I review this particular thing? So let us say it is on health inequalities that I'm experiencing in a local community. So I have less access to GPs. So, you know, all of us would know GPs now, you only get 10 minutes.
10,
yeah. If you're lucky, exactly, as opposed to before. So who decided that? And who decided that that was best for the community? Because if we're all in here, we think 10 minutes. And then also with the 10 minutes, you're only allowed to speak about one ailment as well. And if you've got multiple long-term conditions, how can 10 minutes be enough time for you to speak about everything that is impacted on each other ailment? Who decided that? So again, if there's been no conversation, no inquiry with the community, therefore the barriers that are set up, the systematic inequalities are set up and they continue the same cycle. So again, just going back to the point of validation, for me it was really important to sit down again and be grounded and be amongst my peers and be amongst my elders as well, and to learn. And just to learn and to take in and not be extractive as well, because we can be extractive naturally sometimes. And again, I'm saying professionally, because I'm usually the person that is doing this type of work, I had to sit down amongst people and then say, no, it's not time for that. It's time to inhale, exhale, and understand them and yourself and what we can bring to such things as systematic reviews.
Well, I can relate to what you're saying there, because I was in the workshop situation. We were all together in those 2 workshops, and the emphasis was on contribution, definitely. There was nothing really extractive about it at all. And those animals that you're referring to, Shirley, they were animals of your own creation, because they were in the second workshop and they were based on the data that you produced in the first workshop. All of those ideas came together, and the magic of AI helped us to, create those images. But they really spoke to us because they brought the data to life. That was the idea behind that. It was a really fun, creative, but also very useful experience. That was great. Right, okay, so I think we better just quickly round off now by saying a few closing things before we go to the Q&A with the audience. Could we just say a few things about what we are anticipating for beyond the systematic review? Once it's published and it's out there and we've given it to the world, we've birthed it to the world, what are we really expecting in real terms regarding the way we do things in the future? How is it really going to change the whole model of community research and the whole model of communicating that research to decision makers and really changing the way things are done? What do you what do you see in terms of those changes? Who shall we start with? We'll start with you, shall we, Daniel? There is no box. Yeah, there is no box.
Absolutely. For me, definitely it's about action-orientated dialogue. So there's going to be lots of discussion because there just has to be discussion around this. It can always be polarizing when you're having these type of discussions, again about validation or the process, the methodologies that were used in order to conduct this research, in order to then validate the findings of this systematic review. It will somewhat be polarizing. There will be naysayers. And because of that, when it comes to changing policy or implementing policies that are ultimately going to impact local communities, as an example, we're going to have to really be radical in terms of and being brave. Actually, not radical. I would say brave. Really be brave in standing on what we believe in and standing on the work that we've done, the diligence, the rigor that has been done in order to find this information, and stand on it and being brave that we've done this for a purpose. We've done this to make incremental change. This is not something that is going to be spoke about and then shelved, and then we come back 20 years later to have the same conversation again. So then it's my son that's going to be sitting here instead of me. No. It may not, it may be AI sitting here actually. But I think, it's really important to have action-orientated dialogue. So when we speak about the points, there has to be a trajectory, there has to be a commonality about how we're going to get to the destination together. You know, if it is policy change that we really want, who is that policy change for, and how can we get that policy change to be put into practice? Yeah, because policy can also be written. Yeah, it can also be a dialogue as well. It doesn't necessarily mean the change. Yeah. So in order for that policy to be or mean the change is going to happen, there has to be the right representation, there has to be the right levers, there has to be the right environment, there has to be the right timing sometimes, but it definitely has to be the bravery, as I said, to stand on really what we want to make change of this with. And then my last point, in fact, is, remember earlier on I said, I used the word love. So the only way you really do this, for me personally, and how I have been able to make change, is by changing people's hearts and their minds. And like, there are people in here that know me, and like when I speak, everywhere I go, I mention love because I really mean it. And I've been able to impact people by speaking this way because it feels uncomfortable to hear, like in a academic space or a real formal space, for someone to speak about love. And so I've caught you off guard, haven't I? But at the same time, everybody has, I assume everybody has experienced some type of love. And I feel that when it comes to doing work like this, that has to be poured into it. Because again, if you're going to make any incremental change, you need to love what you're doing here. And you need to love wanting to get up every day and wanting to support people. And you're having to also bring people into a space and a place where they can also reflect and project that as well. In order for them to say, you know what? Yeah, we can make a change. Yeah, I am going to be listened to. Yeah, my voice is going to be heard. Yes, that person does take me seriously. Yes, they live on the other side of the road and they wrote that journal and I've never read it before. But they can hear me today and they're like, wow, you just touch here. Like, it's all been this, but you just touch here. Now there's an opportunity. Now there's an opportunity for a real dialogue to happen. Because that's the only constant that we have in life, is that. So, I told you I'd mention it again. So, so yeah, that's really what I'm going to continue to be brave, continue to speak about love in every space, in every environment, in every forum that I'm in, until I see it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Shall we go to Raquel? Are you going to talk about human connection as well? Love?
Yeah, I must say that was an absolutely lovely way that you just finished that off. I absolutely love that. For me, I think where I see the systematic review taking us is changing behaviour. Us realising that it's not just the knowledge, but it's also the way we act, what we do in the room, the words that we use, the way that we make, whether it be reports, outputs accessible for the community. We need to realise that the reports that are currently available are not accessible for everybody. Everyone learns and understands differently. We need to better understand the cultural nuance of all of our different backgrounds. Every background has a different understanding and a different type of soul behind it, which means you need to treat it in a different way. Which means when it comes to research, you need to rethink, is participatory methods with creative methods better? Is using qualitative methods better? Which methods truly assess what you are trying to achieve, the community you're trying to reach? And it goes back to the way you recruit, the way you engage, the way you speak, the words that you use. It starts from the very, very beginning. And I do feel like that's often forgotten in research. It's often, this is what we need to do, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. That's not what the community wants. That's not. The community wants us to truly understand them, truly give them value, truly give them space, and truly understand that they are human just like you. Just like this room, right? We have stakeholders, but we have also got residents. We have community. And this is how it should be. Community, as well as stakeholders, students, and many others, all in the same room. This is what it should be. This is what it should look like. Everyone's on the same platform. We're all human. We all come from a familiar space, a familiar lived experience, and we should all be able to connect. And I think when I think about systematic review, I don't want it to just be about words. I want us to be able to think about how do we better serve the community and in what format. Can we make reports more accessible, more inclusive? Can we think about creative ways of saying, this is what we've learned? Can we bring community voices into that space? Can we let them be at the forefront, not us? Let them speak their voice, not us.
Excellent. Thank you. Dr. Brenda?
I'm not sure if I can add anything after that. That was really, really beautiful put. I think with a systematic review, for me, I suppose I'm just going to put on my research hat on.
Okay.
You guys have done a fabulous job of identifying all these studies, and so you've got this body of work to answer your question.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of learning as to what has been done well. There's a lot of papers that you're going to find that haven't been done well, and me who's doing research will not want to fall into that particular pile, because as you're doing a systematic review, you're going to be assessing their quality, which ones are good quality, which ones are poor quality. And for me, that's a learning opportunity, because I do this research. I want to ensure that I am, whatever it is that we're talking about, the values that they're instilled in the research that I do. So seeing it on paper, understanding as to which papers have been done well, and not just what's worked, but why has it been done well? Have they done this because of funding issues, and they're being forced to, condense a study that they would have wanted to do in 4 years, but because of no funding, you have to do it like in a year or so. So understanding the context behind the different quality studies, you find the good studies, and I'd want to learn from those particular research studies that have been done well. The reviews are great. Maybe participants have given their feedback on as to what's worked, and we're also seeing what's changed. So the review gives us this opportunity to be able to see. It's almost like a roadmap of what's been done, where the gaps are, and what still needs to be done. And that will be able to allow us to be able to fill those gaps. We might find with a review that a certain area has been covered. Maybe I've worked in social isolation and loneliness, so you might find thousands of papers on isolation and loneliness. They're using one particular method, but it might be that we need to shift the focus a bit, and maybe are we now looking at, I don't know if it's like youth isolation and loneliness, because then it might be the papers are focused on like older people. So it will just allow us to understand what's going on, and that way we'd be able to react better as to what's needed, but also not forgetting the input of the people who are involved, the community members. The papers might indicate that there's a gap here, and we'll take that back to the members of the community and ask them, is this an issue? We might be thinking it's an issue, but for them, that's not an issue. So it's bringing people along as well to understand those gaps and where we're going. So I guess this roadmap, but it's we must also remember with systematic reviews, once it's published, it's always considered as out of date, because there's always papers that are always coming in. So if we can find a way to ensure that we keep it like we make a living review, that we're always like adding to it. So as you're saying, you don't want here 20 years down the line we forgot about it, we're just dusting off the systematic review that we did 20 years ago. If you can just keep it up to date and to find out, okay, what's working, are we seeing any changes, and the impact of maybe the policies that have come in place as a result of the findings, are they being implemented in these new studies that are coming along? So I guess I think I've said roadmap a million times. But yeah, that's what I want to see. I want that to be like a working roadmap for us.
That's fantastic. Let's go to Sean first, and then we'll finish with you. We'll finish with Silvana.
As you said, Daniel, my thing is action. So a lot of these spaces that we have, I'd like to see the community, well, as a result of the systematic review, is to have a process where it's not just consultative, because as you know, with consultations, they like to ask the community their opinions, and then they're not always implemented. So my thing is with that, the result must be where the community has a voice in officialdom. So in local authorities, in the NHS, institutions, we have a position where we're allowed to veto certain decisions that are beneficial to the community. Because too many times what I've seen over the years, we'll have like community leaders, good organizations, once they pass away or they give it up, there's no legacy, there's no handing of the baton. See, like what you said, Daniel, I brought my children here to make sure that they can see what I'm doing in my time. So in their time, they said, oh, I see how that affects people day to day. So when my time comes, I'll be able to carry on the living legacy, what you said, living with you. So it's constant, it's not, oh, we're part of that now, racism is no longer here, so we don't need to talk about it anymore. When these things are still occurring, but it's more hidden, subliminal. So that is my thing, that action must take place, and that the people must have, their voice must be amplified in the places of public institutions. So that we drive the change. We're not asking and going to them with our begging bowl, clapping hands and said, oh, please, can you change? Well, we'll let you consult, but we'll let you have an opinion, but we're going to do what we want anyway. And we're best known because we're more educated, we have more sense. We'll take you on board, we say, but we're going to do what we have because we have bottom lines, we have budgets, we have funding. And I said, well, I don't see any trickling down here. Or you want to give us an opinion, 3 opinions, or maybe a £50 voucher. But you've got researchers making careers out of this. And then people that provide most of the research from their lived experiences that you're collating, they don't get a share of the rewards. So you're creating inequality by doing that. So with me, what I plan to do anyway, personally, is to make sure that this changes. And obviously I've connected to everyone here to make sure that it goes on. And it won't be a case of, oh, we just have a say and then it never changes. That there will be real change once we have position and our voice is amplified through action.
That's brilliant. Silvana, can you top that?
They could be last. What would I say? Such amazing points have been made already. I guess we're just going to stay sedulous, right? The systematic review has been the diligence part, so now it's going to be the determination. And I think for me, there's two strands to that. Like building on Raquel's accessibility, I feel with this systematic review, we're going to be able to develop a community research model, right? And not a one-size-fits-all model, because I think that's where we often go wrong, right? We think, oh, there's one way to do it all. No, there's not. What the aim is for us to build a toolkit with a range of different methodologies that we think work of doing research with our communities, right? So that's the one side, because that will make research accessible to our communities, because if there's other community organizations like us, they can then learn from these approaches and apply it themselves, right? We're not trying to be the only one. Like we said, we're looking to leave a legacy way beyond us. The second part is influencing, right? The determination to influence, because, you know, we want to influence the academics that, hey, there are better ways of doing the research. We want to influence funders. There are better ways of fund these research projects, right? We want to influence local authorities, governments, like anybody that is kind of conducting research with communities. And I specifically say with communities, right? Because that's where the change needs to be. It needs to be not researching on us, no, it needs to be with us. And I think, you know, that's gonna have to be one of the outcomes of what we're doing here. Like, how are we taking this into like change of behavior, which has been mentioned a couple of times now. Yeah, I think that's where I see it going. Just the legacy of change, really.
So resetting the context, resetting the whole approach, and becoming a central point of reference.
Exactly.
For future policy making.
Yeah, especially with the toolkit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Toolkit.
So yes, we're being very ambitious here. We
No
know that.
pressure.
But that's also why we all need you, right? As community members, to keep, you know, giving your feedback. You know, when we're doing something good, tell us. If we're doing something bad, tell us, right? The stakeholders, you know, be curious, right? Be here. You're here in the room, which is great. So now, what else can we do together, right? I mean, that's where the change comes, because, you know, talk is great, but, you know, we need to have some action.
Great.
So, yeah.
Okay, fantastic.